Wait, wait, wait. Very good. Come on then. What's this? What's this? Are you ready? Are you ready? Ready? Well done, Poppy. Poppy. Here. Do you want to do it again? Are you ready? I don't want to hit you as I serve. Ready? Right, are you ready? I'm ideally dressed for tennis, aren't I? Aren't I? Are you ready? No. Naughty. Oh, well done. Come on then. Come on then. Come on, Stella. Freya. Hello. Well done. Well. This bench is now nicknamed Lady Mary's bench. There were so many scenes from Downton Abbey filmed right here. It's obviously long preceded Downton Abbey, and just behind me is a statue of Capability Brown, the bust of Capability Brown. And it was actually this extraordinary man who in 1771, with his client, the first Earl of Carnarvon, laid out this beautiful Arcadian 1,000-acre parkland. It's possibly beautiful because of the undulations of the topography, but it was also shaped by the hand of man. So in some ways in the world today, we're continually trying to analyse the relationship between nature and man, and so it was also in the past, but there were far less of us then. The cedar tree under which I'm sitting was planted probably around about 1760, and there are some of a similar age around here. It would have come as a cone, and as a cone on which there are many little tiny seeds from the forests of Lebanon, which were at once a wonder of the world. In Lebanon, they don't grow so tall and strong. They've got such good climatic weather in this country with the rain and the sun that whereas in Lebanon they have less water, less rain. So here they grow big and strong, and in some ways that's one of their major problems because their branches then tend to get tested by the frosts and snows of the occasional cold winter we have here. On some of the trees we've actually taken away some of the big branches just to try to lessen the weight, because they're so important to the arrival story and to the beauty of the lawns around the castle. And I hope they'll live for another century yet after George and I are long gone. I have so often walked along this path, laughing and chatting with both Karina and her father Thorstein Hagen. And our relationship here with Viking goes far beyond business. It starts before Downton Abbey, and just getting to know Karina as a friend and almost another of my sisters. I met Karina through some of my oldest friends, Daphne and Michael Dormer. I'd probably known them for some 40 years. They were a wonderful, extraordinary, eccentric couple, and I used to stay with them not far from here, you know, when I was 20 and 21. And they had met Karina, and they thought Karina should come over and meet me, so that's what happened. She then came and stayed once for Christmas. I'd had a litter of puppies, Labrador puppies, and she kept going to look at them because she works so hard. And I remember my husband saying, she's never going to take a puppy to me. And I said, well, I think she should. And she did, in fact, decide that Finse would become part of her life. Finse is named for the most beautiful area of Norway. And she's been such an icon both for Viking and a much-loved family dog for both Karina and her father. And the dogs that you all see around are related to Finse. So these are Finse's brothers, Scooby-Doo and Alfie. And we've started off having puppy parties here together, often in September when the weather was quite good. And they're doing really well. I think they have a nice life, a few grey hairs, but I think we all do. Finza had a litter of puppies, and that led to Freya and Stella on my part. And my husband named Freya for the Norse goddess of love, and Stella because she is a star. And in fact, many of the Viking cruise ships are named after stars. So perhaps inadvertently or serendipitously, we seem to be aligned in our thought patterns once. And then finally, Stella's now had a litter of puppies. And I kept 2. I don't know why I keep 2 and not 1, completely mad. But anyway, Karina sensibly kept 1, Freddie. And I have Poppy and Isla, don't I, Isla? So Isla's got a blue collar. I thought it's a beautiful name from Scotland, from an island, and a name of a girl as well. And Poppy was named by my nieces, and she has a red collar. Poppy just thinks you absolutely are going to adore her and want her to leap on your knee and be kissed and cuddled by Poppy. So she is a really loving dog. I think Freddie's much the same way. But we are so lucky. They make us get out and walk. You meet people through dog walking with your dogs on a beach or in the countryside. And they're always there to talk to, aren't you? Yes. And you are very muddy. Isla's the tomboy, actually. She's always upside down and getting muddy, whereas Poppy's paler and really doesn't get nearly as muddy. And their mother, Stella, is just such a nice person. So this is Dogton Abbey as well as Downton Abbey. The other, a related part of it is, of course, that Karina started writing this beautiful series of books illustrated by Susie Jane Tanner, all about the dogs of Dogton Abbey and the journeys they go on. It's a way of sharing the stories and the geography of the world and reading to children. I think they're just enchanting. And any money Karina makes from them goes into a foundation to support education. Everything is great about Viking sometimes. This is such an extraordinary room. The height, the scale, the light, the carvings. And there are many beautiful paintings and the leather wall covering from Cordoba from 1661. But on this easel is rather an important man for all of us and the history of Highclere. It's the 5th Earl of Carnarvon, the man who, with Howard Carter, discovered the tomb of Tutankhamun. And I wrote his biography, which no one had ever written before. And with no Lord Carnarvon, I don't think we'd have found the tomb of Tutankhamun. But what struck me was I was writing it, and he had a challenging life in terms of losing his mother when he was 9 years old. She died in childbirth, and losing his father when he was a little bit too young as well. But he found himself through sailing, through the sea. And when he was about 19 years old, with a captain and a small crew, he'd bought a yacht and he sailed from here, from Cowes, on the Isle of Wight, across the Atlantic Ocean to Argentina. It's extraordinary, isn't it? And he loved it. Thereafter, his passion, his relaxation was the sea. He loved sailing and it stayed with him. And of course, at the very end, he wasn't sailing on an ocean. He was sailing on a river, going from Luxor in Egypt up the Nile to the Aswan Dam, where fatally he cut his cheek with a razor, didn't disinfect it with iodine, which might have worked perfectly well, came back to Luxor, and then he had to make his way back to Cairo, where he sadly died. He was obviously brought back here, so he's buried back here. But in many ways, his life was dominated by his love of the sea. I bet you didn't know that. Come on, you two. I wonder if you think you're in Downton Abbey or Highclere Castle. Well, of course, it's one and the same, which is rather amazing. I think some 500 million people have watched Downton Abbey, so the pleasure it has given. And of course, quite a few million of those were in North America. And again, that's the link between Viking, Downton and Highclere, because it was Viking who brilliantly sponsored Downton Abbey on PBS from the beginning. It was fantastic for them, and it's been fantastic for all of us, and has deepened the relationship and friendship, because I think business works better if it's also a little bit of fun, but you can also trust people because there's an understood loyalty and the central values of culture, of entertaining, of trying to enrich people's lives and explore the world. For us, it's through books here, and through Viking, it's through travel. There are many books on travel in this library, and whenever I'm starting to write about another earl, another period of time, this is often where I start, this and the archive rooms. And so many books were written about travel through America, in fact. Early travellers exploring this amazing land, so little understood, with almost no roads, obviously no railways, and they were using the river, the Mississippi, to find their way through America. And it was shared at that time between both the English and the French. Hence all the names on the east coast of America, from St. Louis, French for the French king, Georgia for King George, Carolina for his queen. And obviously the French were incredibly important to the history of America, as well as the English. So the world is full of such a diverse history and creation of the populations, isn't it? It's fun to explore. And the more you understand the pageantry of where you travel, I think the better you can make decisions and the kinder you can be to those people who you travel through the world with, I hope. You have to travel in hope, don't you? And what about you two? Are you travelling towards your lunch or breakfast? Always ready for breakfast and lunch, aren't you? Yes. There are many books in travel in this library. Many atlases too. They've rather gone out of vogue now. This one is Travels in America, Volume 2. Now, let's see, when was it published? It's in a Latin script. So, 1777. So that's quite old. That's when it was published. And it's Travels Through America. That's what it's called. Wow. The last town we left before our arrival at this place was West Town, where we found the most convenient inn of any on the road. It is quite equal to most in England. The rooms commodious, provisions good, and servants attentive. Actually, I think I'd rather enjoy this one. There's also some rather wonderful engravings. Encampment of the Convention Army. So I thought I might find a map in this book, but instead of which I found some engravings, copies, sketches of some American dollars of each side of the dollar bill, $6, $50. And look, it's a lot about nature, which I rather love. More leaves. How wonderful. $65, isn't that interesting? Quite a different number, not 50, not 100. But the leaves actually remind me that 100 years later after this book, the Victorians were very keen on collecting unusual cones and saplings from America and bringing them over here and planting them and selling them to aristocrats for their parks and their gardens, which is why we've got some redwood trees. I don't know whether you know, but there was quite an argument about the name, the Latin name for the redwood tree, because an Englishman, William Lobb, had gone across and managed to bring back 2 saplings and some cones. He took them to the RHS at Kew, and he was creating the Latin name for them, and he thought he would call them after Wellington, the Duke of Wellington, a hero of that generation, Wellingtonia. Whereas in America, they were slightly behind him, and they wanted to call them after another general and president, Washington, Washingtonia. In the end, there was a bit of debate, and they've got called Sequoia. There's also the Sequoia the General Sherman ones and Sempervirens, but also Wellingtonians. So it was a little bit of an argument at that point. So it's quite interesting to find some plants on the back of some dollar bills. It was an extraordinary country to explore in those times. A huge country, and one with very little thoroughfares from east to west. And of course the most important method of travel would have been the river, particularly the Mississippi. And that would have been a way to find and understand the people of the interiors and all they had to teach us all. What's another book here, which is another travel book of the eastern and western states of America. And this is much more modern. It's 1818. I was hoping I might find a map, but I can't at the moment find that. But I think it's about what they found. Trades and manufactories. Oh, I like things like this. An auger maker, bellows maker, blacksmiths, brewers, brush makers, button makers. So this was what the manufacturers in Pittsburgh, in the state of Pennsylvania, in the year 1817, and it lists how many there were, and it estimates their yearly income. Wow. Very practical, the later Victorians, I suppose, and perhaps their ancestors were also imbued with practicality. There's a wonderful book about the travel through Egypt, too, huge maps. Egypt always has a special place in my heart. I'm going to put these back. I love this room, particularly earlier in the day, because the light pours in, it faces south. There aren't otherwise many electric lights, which is probably quite good in this world of expensive resources. The other thing about this room is there are some beautiful paintings of Venice and Canaletto, the water, and a lovely Dutch painting up there. I was brought up in the holidays by the sea in Cornwall. I love the sea, the sound of the sea, walking along the beach. So it has been a joy to become so connected to Viking. And rather amazingly, I'm a godmother of both a river ship and an ocean-going, wonderful, beautiful ship. So I am really honoured. I would love to sail around the British Isles, actually, and see Cornwall and the amazing cliffs, and which is so much part of our British history from the sea, not just from the land. And I'd like to go up to Scotland as well. I think the best way to see some of the islands are from the sea. So I hope some of you might join me there.